I reached about 8 years old, they began to have problems in the house, and my parents were arguing, and a lot of things began to happen that made my life unpleasant. I saw a lot of things that I didn't want to do with my children, and that's what influenced me a lot when I had children, was to reflect back on my childhood and how my parents responded to things, how they behaved in their lives, and I wanted to do the opposite. My father was good to me. My mother was worse than my father. She had other things on her mind. So my parental examples were not very good. So I wanted to do just the opposite when raising my children. Well, no doubt the Lawrence Hill Church of God had a big influence on my life. And a lot of people there no doubt knew about what was going on at my home, even though I didn't know they knew. And so there was a lot of people being very special to me, hugging me. And then I had the my Christian peers that I played with, other good boys and girls in the church. And then, of course, the influence of just the Christian ministry and teachings. And so I think that's what steered me out of a bad behavior that I could have had. I realized, looking back, I could have been exactly like they were. And it was no problem to become what they already were, because they didn't stop me maybe from drinking if I had wanted to, and then a lot of other things I could have gotten away with. But fortunately, I had a lot of good influence from church people, Christian influence. I think it's the Apostle Paul who says something in Colossians 3:21, somewhere in there, that we have to be very careful not to provoke our children to bitterness. So there's a fine line between practicing strong discipline with a child and giving them a leeway to do what they want to do. And I placed a lot of emphasis on trying to have my children to have self-respect. I would praise them every time they did something good. I would encourage them to do things that they were hesitant to do. And I think children are to see parents as God, in the sense that they are to fear God, that is, reverence God, because He is all-powerful, and the Father is the head of the home, but also a God of love that will forgive and open His heart to you and show love to you even if you make mistakes. So when I used to discipline my children, I did have a wooden paddle. They would go off and cry, and I'd let them cry it out. Then I would have them come back, sit on my lap, and we would talk about it. So I think that's what went on in my life, and that's how I felt that I was to show them God as best as I could.
I think you accomplished that.
Well, it all turned out very well, and I give God the praise for it. Of course, I was living a Christian example all the time, going to church, upholding Christian principles. When they got angry, talk to them about it. Why are you angry? What would God have you do in response, and so forth. Always thinking along those lines.
I remember your paddle, but I remember your love more.
I'm glad to hear that.
Thanks, Dad.
You're welcome. I'm glad you're pastor and preaching God's word, as my other son is, and another son.
How about that?
And that makes me feel pretty good, I have to